October 8th, 2001, I was in a automobile accident. I was running from the police because I just violated probation.
Not so often do people talk about the inner battle and the mental battle and just overcoming hurdles. And I think that just, it calluses you and trains you to become an entrepreneur.
I already lost a daughter, and it looks like I just lost my son. I don't know you anymore.
How do you balance the mental health side of like growing a business with realizing that like that your time here is finite?
We're projected to do about 125 to 130 million. We have about 600 employees.
Don't like do anything for someone that they can do themselves when you should be teaching them.
And I recognized that I was the chokehold, and I understood that I needed to get out of my own way.
Be in a good mood in the absence of things to be in a good mood about.
So I was like, holy shit, like I got to step up my game. I got to keep being one step ahead of my team.
Ryan, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are stoked to have you on the show today, man. Really appreciate you joining us here.
Yeah, I'm equally excited, my guys. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. So we're super excited today to talk about helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses. And I know you're a big mental health advocate. And I think not only as males, but I think just in the game of business and entrepreneurship, mental health is something that's not talked about enough. So I want to kind of unpack that today, spread some hope to people, but also talk through your journey and how you got to the level you're at now and all of your speaking engagements. So maybe give us a walk down memory lane and your story on how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, bro. So this October, I'll be celebrating 24 years of sobriety, which to me, that is the most important thing in my life. I believe that is what established my foundation and my principles that ultimately overlapped into my ability to scale my business. October 8th, 2001, I was in a automobile accident. I was running from the police because I just violated probation. And the judge told me, if I come back, they're going to adjudicate me as an adult and I'm going to do 25 to life. And so I'm 16 years old, October 8th, 2001. I flipped the car at the scene. I was proclaimed dead. And clearly God had a different plan for me. Yet I was still facing 25 to life. I woke up in jail and I was like, oh my God, how did I get here? How did this happen again? And that's the thing about addiction is so many times you tell yourself, I'm going to quit. This is the last time. I'm not going to do it again. I promise this is it. And you promise everybody and you tell everybody you're going to quit. And then all of a sudden the addiction gets you. And then you wake up the next morning like, what the hell did I do? And that's exactly what happened to me, except I was looking at a 25 to life sentence, which was like, oh shit, I'm screwed.
So I wanted to touch on this here. I don't think we've had, somebody come out the gate with such an impactful background in terms of the turnaround that you had. So talk to us about what happened there. I don't know if that was that you didn't get tried as an adult. You avoided the 25 to life. It sounds like, I assume that's why we're having this conversation, but just tell us about what happened there. And then I really want to touch on how entrepreneurship became a factor in your life, because it seems like quite the shift. You're going down a certain path and then to take that right turn or left, however you look at it, like you've made such a rebound. So I'm very curious to see like what happened in between your ears.
Yeah, for sure. And looking back today, I can tell you the depth of my pain, the depth of my challenges have created my ability to have to have perseverance. And I think that is one of the key factors to scaling a business. And so I wake up in Juvie. I go to the phone to call my dad. My dad says, I already lost a daughter, and it looks like I just lost my son. I don't know you anymore. And he hangs up the phone on me. And I was devastated. When I needed him the most, he didn't know how to show up for me. So I go back to my dorm. I'm crying. I'm devastated. I'm like, I'm screwed. Like, I'm done. The judge told me I'm done. I already have 21 felonies. Up until this point, I robbed a store with a handgun when I was 14, a bunch of burglaries, grand thefts. I was just an absolute menace out there on the streets. And I go to church on Sunday, and the pastor came over to me and she says, young man, do you believe? And I was like, what do you mean? Do you believe? She's like, do you believe God has a plan for you? And I was like, listen, lady, I don't know what you're talking about, but like, I'm done. Like the judge told me if I come back, I'm done. There's people in here that have way less charges than me that are they're being adjudicated. I'm 16. I turned 17 in a couple months. I'm done. And she smiles and she says, well, son, I want you to believe that I believe God has a bigger plan for you. And I was like, this lady's crazy. I was like, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. And so whatever happened, there was a seed planted. And I go back to my dorm, and Sunday afternoon, they have visitation. And up until this point, I haven't seen my mom in years because my mom was an active drug user, and a lot of my criminal mischief was because of my mom. My mom was shot, stabbed, prostituted, you name it. She's been through it. So I haven't seen her up at about 2 years up to this point. And the guy comes over and says, Ryan, you have a visitor. And I was like, who's here to visit me? And he was like, it's your mom. And I was like, my mom? What the hell? And I remembered that walk down the hall to the cafeteria. And I was just so overwhelmed with emotions. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And in recovery, they say it's attraction, not promotion. It's a theme that they talk about in recovery. And when I walked through the door, my mom's gorgeous. And this was the first time I saw her, and she was sober. And I sat down and she says, baby, I got you in here, and I'm going to get you out. And I was just like, Mom, I'm done. Like, I'm done. They're throwing the book at me. I'm done. And she says, no. She says, it's my fault. You're here. I'm getting you out of here. I was just like, fuck. If you can get me out of here, I'll do whatever the hell it takes. And my mom fought for me, man. Tooth and nail. She literally stepped on the sword and did everything in her power to get me out of there. And she did. And she did, man. I did 9 more months. The judge gave me a suspended sentence, a suspended judgment. And he said, if he ever sees me again, I'm done. And that was it. I got out of jail 9 months later, and here I am 24 years later.
Well, this is quite the comeback story here. So it's just so impressive because Ryan and I often have these conversations with people who are like true rags to riches. And I don't know if I've heard more of a story like that. And Ryan and I are super grateful because we grew up middle class, maybe upper middle class, depending upon where where you are in the country. And we always feel like there's this fire that people bring that come from worse off situations than us, So we try to match it with whatever we have. And sometimes I feel like I don't even know if I could, I don't think we have that deepness of that fire. And that's why I enjoy conversations with people like you. So I really want to touch on the next few steps. Like you have this new lease on life. Your mom saved you, which is remarkable. How did you make changes to ensure that you wouldn't be back in that same situation? Because it sounds like that was on repeat for a while for you. And you're a kid, right? Like you're 16, 17, like that's a child. So you had to grow up quick. What happened next?
Yeah. So, really, I enrolled in a 12-step program, and I got a sponsor, and I worked the steps, and I was very diligent in my program. And later on in life, I started to recognize that 12 steps wasn't working for me anymore. Like I wasn't using I was no longer, medicating, but there was still this like internal issue going on, and I was still acting out in other ways. And I started doing deeper work, identifying like the core issues. And so what I have found is that your past perceived voids create your future perceived values. And those formative years that we grow up, our belief systems, the model of our world is created, and we start to make decisions based on those beliefs. And I started to recognize that's what was going on for me. But what was really cool about this is that, notice my dad hung up the phone on me. I always wanted to make my dad proud. And so I had this fire to show him that I'm not a scumbag. I had this fire to show him that I wanted him to be proud of me. And I was just relentless in my pursuit. I was like, I'm going to show him. People need leverage in life. And when your back's against the wall, you find a way. And that is the human condition. And that is one of the God-given gifts that that was blessed to us. But most people don't know how to access that. And so I recognize that, I got to go all in on myself. And I did. I obsessed. I went all in on dealing with those voids and finding out what the hell is going on unconsciously.
It's incredible, man. I want to kind of fast forward to where you are today, just to give people a bigger picture of this whole thing and how you kind of tied it together. And then we'll weave through. But you're the founder of We Level Up Treatment Centers. Can you talk to us about the business? I'm kind of seeing how it's all encapsulated from your journey and how it came to be. But take us through that. Like 16, 17. You're kind of getting back on your feet and having this internal journey, right, of finding yourself and finding your way in the world and how am I going to impact people? And then you start this business. And so I don't know if this was a 24-year-old business or if it started something later in life, but take us through that. I'm curious on how it started.
Yeah, so I started the business in 2013. So that was about, 12 years ago. So that puts me at, 12 minus 40, 28 years old. So I started the business when I was 28. Up until that point, I mastered the art of sales. So I was a commodities broker. And so I understood how to influence and empower people to make decisions. And I think that was one of the best gifts that was given to me. And then I recognized once I started my business, purpose driven, right? Like I want to change and impact lives, make a difference in the world. So the fulfillment was aligned. And then I recognized in order for me to crush it in business, I needed to build an insane team around me and inspire that team to be better as humans. And the better those people became, the more valuable those people became, the more valuable my company became. And so today, a snapshot of where we are, we have 7 programs in 5 states. We have about 435 beds. We'll do about 105 million this year. Next year, we're projected to do about 125 to 130 million. We have about 600 employees. We will have about 850 employees by the end of this year. And so, yeah.
Incredible, man. I want to ask you about this crossover between this. This is I don't think I've ever asked this question, but I think you're the perfect person to ask it to. The crossover between this addiction thing that you had that kind of ruled the beginning of your life to the obsession that it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I feel like I'm toting a fine line here because the mental health for me is an interesting, I have a little bit of an addictive personality, but I never went through addiction or anything like that. But my running a business and having to be that level of obsessed, do you think that there's any way that being able to overcome your addiction has actually propelled you to understand like sort of a level of intensity that you need to move forward with as a business owner? And hopefully I'm wording that question well enough for you to pick up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, 100%. I believe as humans, we do things to make us feel good. And so I did drugs and alcohol to feel good. I wanted to escape my environment. I hated the environment I was in. So I used drugs and alcohol to feel good. I got sober. I started to gain some success. I started to make some money. I started to change people's lives. And that shit felt good. I was like, holy crap, I want more of this. And so what I know to be true today is our ability to place our attention on a situation or an objective or a goal is limited to our brain capacity. So the obsessive approach to me is necessary to be successful because you have to literally lock in. You have to lock in and just be relentless and keep going. And the reps, you got to get the reps in. And there's a thing that I say, repetition is the mother of skill. You have to fall in love with the practice. Don't worry about the outcome. Fall in love with the practice. And so every single day showing up and giving that level of intensity is how I built this business. And there's no shortcuts. I get there's AI and there's strategic ways to leverage today, but there still is a part of you where you have to grind it out. You have to put in the work.
Yeah, 100%. So talk to us about what your goals are with the business. Like I see a lot of like, the mental health advocacy, the personal development, but like structurally, like how are you approaching this in terms of, you're in the business of changing people's lives. So if you could dive a little bit more into what that actually means, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, losing both of my parents, seeing a ton of friends, OD and die, I recognize that my gift on earth today is to help solve people's problems through mental health, through addiction, through psychology issues in general, because mastering your psychology is the cheat code to scaling a business, making a lot of money in life, being successful, living in a beautiful state, regardless what's going on around you. And so for me, it just aligned. It was a gift. I did not know, being an addict or being being an alcoholic, that I would get to a place where I get to help so many people. And so I think it's so important because, people say, like, what comes first? Your passions or your dreams, or do you work hard? I feel like if you work hard, eventually you're going to find your passion and your dreams, because people are always so confused on, like, wanting to, like, oh, I don't like what I'm doing. Well, you're not working hard enough. You're not grinding long enough to see the results and see the benefits, because I didn't know when I started this business in 2013, I love it the way I love it now.
It's super interesting, this whole journey, man. And I want to talk to the specifics that you put people through when they come into one of your treatment centers, and maybe just kind of give us like a window. Obviously, it's the way I'm seeing it is, people come in and you're deeply trying to change their lives for the better, because you have been through certain things that are maybe similar, and you've been through the struggle. So can you talk to what you guys offer specifically when people come in, what type of treatment programs? And then I also want to dive into I see you doing a bunch of not performances, but basically you're a keynote speaker for a lot of things. So I want to talk to that side of the business too.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a psychiatric physician that licenses our facilities, and we have doctors and nurses that are working 24/7. So we are an inpatient program. So we help people detox off of heroin. 70% is alcoholism. The rest is pretty much opiates. And so they come in, they detox for a week. And then we do a 2-week deep intensive where we're really just digging into the traumas, digging into the core issues of why they are wanting to escape. And so that's essentially a 21-day program. And then we connect people with aftercare, or we connect them back to their homes so they can live and have a successful life. Because at the end of the day, anybody can come to our program and do good for 21 days. It's like, what are you doing after when you leave? And so we really want to set them up for success. And so that's essentially just a quick snapshot of what we do with our program.
I love it. Corey, do you have one on that?
Yeah, well, so growing this business has been something that's like super unique. I don't know a lot of people in this type of space, but now you're like, one of your taglines here is that you help other entrepreneurs scale their business. So I'm curious how that fits into your picture. Like, is that, it seems like it's something separate from the actual core business that you're running, but what have you learned in scaling your business to $100 million that you think the value that you have to give other entrepreneurs? And I don't know if you work with entrepreneurs that are in specific business types, if they're other treatment centers, or if they're just business in general. Talk to me a little bit about what you've learned and how you help other entrepreneurs grow.
Yeah, I would say most businesses have a similar function, and each one requires these specificities to scale or to grow. And what I found, August 2018, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and I recognized that I was the chokehold, and I understood that I needed to get out of my own way. And most business owners need to do that as well. And that's when I recognized that I needed to go from a business operator to a business owner. And that's when I started to master psychology, master the art of influence. And I realized that I needed key people. So the first most important piece is talent acquisition, identifying key people that are absolute rock stars, that are A players, and you just give them more, inspire them, leverage them so that they get inspired to grow your business, and you share in profits. That was my strategy. The second is marketing and sales. If you don't have leads, if you don't have people that need help, your business is going to fail. And so really mastering the skill of generating leads and then a world-class sales team, and bringing those people in and inspiring those people and giving those people an opportunity. And one thing I learned, if you're not scaling your business will eventually die, because the people that are working with you, the people that are talented, they're going to want to leave. They're going to want to move on because they want to grow. They want to be inspired. And so it forces you to show up and be a better human being. It forces you to be a better leader. And so that's what I recognized. I was like, holy shit, like I got to step up my game. I got to keep being one step ahead of my team. I got to keep showing up. So I started speaking on stages. I started doing podcasts. I started doing events, because every single time I did an event, every single time I spoke on stage, my team would be like, holy shit, Ryan's doing it. Holy shit, he's growing. Holy shit, he's being a badass. And it inspired my team to want to be with me. Success isn't something that you pursue. Success is something that you attract by being attractive. So I recognized that I needed to get out of my own way, be a badass in what I'm good at, and let them be a badass in what they're good at, and then share in profits. And that's how we were able to grow this business.
Ryan, how do you determine whether or not you need to be doubling down in the work as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or in the beginning stages, or hiring people to bring onto your team? And this is a question that I feel like maybe even personally, like Ryan and I maybe need help with, because we don't have $100 million company. We amplify other people's voices. But I'm so curious when I get to when people talk about the scaling aspect and putting people in the right positions. But I'm wondering if there's a dollar figure number or a period in time where you're like, hey, I do need to step away. Or it's like, no, I need to go brute force and build this out myself so that I know how I can teach others how to be great.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely different breakpoints as you're scaling. And one of the things that I recognize is you have to do it all. You have to master it all. And so our company, we reinvested our dollars. So sequence matters, right? So when you invest, when you scale, because what I found is probably 6 of the last 12 years, we had minimal profits because we were reinvesting. We were spending money on scaling. So there is a transition that you go through where you are going to lose some money, but you have to be ready for that. You have to be prepared when you sit down to scale. You have to say, okay, these next 3 years, the bottom line isn't going to be as good as we want it to be, but we have to do this. We have to invest in order to get to where we want to be. And that was exactly what happened for us. So for example, 2024 was our worst year I've ever been in business. I think we barely made like $2 million. This year, we're probably going to make 20 million. And so a lot of the work that we were putting in, a lot of the money we were spending, and a lot of the cash flows that we weren't experiencing hit us in that 2024. But then the beginning of 2025 came and everything hit, everything compounded, everything blew up. And so there is a bit of a sacrifice that you have to go through when you are scaling a business. The best thing to do is if you have capital, if you have investors. So we had angel investors. And so, but we didn't raise enough money. We were always underraised. We didn't have enough cash. So I had to put up cash. I had to roll cash forward. And up until last year was the first time we got a bank loan. So for the first 10, 11 years of our business, we never even had a bank loan. We just got a $3 million bank loan last year. We needed it because of where we were at. And so those are all very important pieces. Obviously, we could dive deeper if we have more time to really unpack all those different verticals, but you pretty much have to figure out how to do it all at the same time. And then sequence does matter, and you have to be on it. And one thing that I know that really helped us through this process was every single day, every single week, we have flash meetings. We sit down and we talk about the plan. We talk about the target. We talk about the KPIs, and we obsess about the process. Like what's going on right now. You have to anticipate. You have to anticipate. In order to scale, you have to be resourceful. And so when you sit down, you have to get in front of everything. So you literally have to like juggle and like just sit there and keep juggling and figuring out how to master the juggling. And then all of a sudden it gets a little easier. All of a sudden you don't have to juggle as many balls. All of a sudden it gets a little easier. Next thing you know, you're like, holy shit, we're here.
It's pretty cool, man. I do want to touch on some of the verticals too. And just like how you're, the split of like where the revenue is coming from, because I often talk to people, and it's funny. It's like kind of wouldn't call it a vanity metric, but when someone says, yeah, $100 million, $200 million company, it's interesting because it's really what's important to you is the bottom line, right? And you just mentioned like having $2 million in profit. That wasn't good enough for you guys this year. 20, that sounds pretty dang good to me. So I'm curious on like, where the dollars get split up, like how what are the revenue generating, what are the silos, if you will, of the business?
Sure. So I would say 95% of our income comes from insurance. So we bill insurance companies. So like Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we have contracted rates with those big providers, and we are a preferred provider for a lot of those big companies now. And it took us years to establish ourselves. It took us years to build a reputation because, you know, the accreditation and compliance is everything in our industry. And the cleaner you are, the cleaner your clinical program is, the more compliant you are, the more money they pay you. And so that was something that we mastered, you know, over the last 5 years, because we're like, all right, we know what's coming down the pipe. We know that the insurance companies are tightening their revenues. They don't want to pay as much as they're paying anymore. That's the way it is. Inflation's increasing. The cost to operate's increasing. So we have to master our outcomes. We have to master the results. We have to master compliance. And when we did that, we've been able to negotiate incredible rates. When I hear people in our industry, we're probably in the 90 percentile. Most people are in that like 50 to 60 percentile.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, I mean, the insurance business is one of those that's like, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. That's
well, what's interesting, because I know you guys do real estate. So 2018, I started to think about this. I'm like, all right, well, if I'm leasing all these programs, why don't I start building in options to purchase? Because I didn't have the cash to buy them. And so one of the strategies that I came up with was like, all right, I'll do like a 3-year lease with an option to buy, launch the company, asymmetrical risk versus reward, step into it cheap because I didn't have a ton of cash. I had angel investors. So we had to limp our way through. And then once the business started to succeed after 24 months, we went to the bank and said, hey, bank, check it out. We're doing good. Let me borrow some money to purchase the real estate. And then we started to build a real estate portfolio as well.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on that and how that's that has scaled too, because what I've seen is that the more involved in real estate we get, we realize that real estate is really like the biggest wealth maintainer and grower one of the biggest out there, as opposed to like, are you going to buy a rental property, 100 rental properties and like have that be your active income on cash flow? Like you can, but it takes a long, long time. But one of the biggest wealth, and this is what we talk about on the podcast, is like, once you have it, to grow it and to maintain it and to stabilize it and to protect it, real estate's incredible. So I'm curious about your real estate portfolio and like how that's grown over the past several years. Yeah,
sure. So again, it all goes back to psychology, right? And so the practice that you implement is going to determine your level of success. So I have a bucket that I live on, my living fund, and every other dollar I'm investing. And so I am a healthcare professional, so I get to accelerate depreciation on healthcare real estate. And so my objective is to purchase real estate in that physical year. Like this year, I'm blitzing. I'm looking to close on a deal in Seattle. I'm looking to close on a deal in Massachusetts. I'm developing a 33,000 square feet program in Wellington. So those 3 programs right there, that's going to be 816 plus 12. So that's $28 million in real estate. You get about a 23% accelerated depreciation. That's going to eat into a lot of my income. And so the objective is to invest, use the money to make you money, and find ways to avoid paying taxes. And those 2 recipes, you do that for 5-6 years. Next thing you know, you're going to look back and you're going to like, holy shit, I have $200 million worth of real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, and the acceleration of playing real life Monopoly with it too, and exchanging and trading up is the most fun for us in the real estate space. Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to touch on that specifically. I want to get more. No, okay. So Ryan, I'm very curious about the deeper side of the mental health stuff, like because it becomes this, entrepreneurship is this glorified world that people play in, that it can be incredible. But I actually had a conversation this morning with somebody who's like, hey, I was thinking about whether it's starting my own business or becoming a real estate agent. And that essentially is owning your own business, right? You have to run your own team and stuff, or just like find your clients. And they're like, well, I don't really like working for other people, but the ambition level has to be turned all the way up on this. So I'm curious about how you balance the mental health side, not as, coming from being an addict, that you seem to have beaten that, but the mental health of the entrepreneurship game, to not get too sucked into that world where it's go, go, go forever and you never take your foot off the gas. And because for us, Ryan, I don't know how old you are, but Ryan and I are approaching, oh, you just mentioned you're 40, right? So Ryan and I are early mid 30s, 33, 34. And we've just started to realize, okay, we've delayed gratification for a long time. We're going to take some of the fruits of our labor. We want to enjoy our life along the way. I don't have to be a billionaire. I'm okay with not being a billionaire. I just want to I want to be able to do both, make money and enjoy it. So how do you balance the mental health side of growing a business with realizing that that your time here is finite and at any point in time, it could be your number can be called. And I know that's a little bit deeper, but we like to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's amazing. I think it's important to talk about too. Losing both my parents, I started to recognize how important life really was. And I started to recognize who I was surrounding myself with and what I was really up to. And what I found through this journey of mastering psychology and teaching it and healing people is your emotional threshold is going to determine your level of success. And so everybody has their baseline. And what I have found, the more you can master your baseline, the more you can stabilize your emotional state. So when things aren't going the way that when things aren't going the way that you want them to, you're able to still master your state, master how you're showing up, master how you're responding. And that is the key. That is the key to my success. And what I have found is every single time I break to a new level, my nervous system gets funky. It gets wobbly. I start freaking out and I start to have the thoughts of am I doing too much? Should I just be grateful for what I have? I don't want to be a billionaire. I'm grateful with this. Maybe I should just stay here. That's just your unconscious brain trying to keep you safe. And what I have found is that every level you can finally normalize. Every level that you break into can be a norm for you if you master your emotional state. And so my practice is insane. I wake up every morning. I do an hour meditation, non-negotiable. It's been 2 years now. I haven't missed a day. I go right to the gym. I'm 2 hours in the gym. I crush cardio. I eat a diet. I have a nutritionist. And I am training like if I'm competing for the Olympics. And that is my mindset. And that is what I do. That is how I show up. And then when shit comes my way, I'm not surprised because problems are a part of life. The biggest problem in life everybody has is they think that there shouldn't be problems. And I have accepted the fact that problems are coming my way. And I have a new belief and a new thought process that the bigger the problem means that I'm worthy of I'm worthy of taking on that opponent. It's like if you're stepping in the ring going up against the title holder, well, you're in the ring because you're as good as you need to be to fight the best in the world. Well, guess what? If a big problem's coming my way, then I'm clearly prepared to solve that problem. And that is based on your emotional threshold. And that is based on your level of consciousness, based on your level of awareness, because there is a possibility that does exist where that problem isn't a problem. And that is the mastery. How do you find a way to solve this problem? How do I change my perspective, change my consciousness, stabilize my emotions, feel certain about making this decision and forge forward?
Has the meditation and getting your health dialed in been the number one thing that you think has propelled you to be able to take on new problems? And I ask this because Hormozy says, I think the best thing you can do is be in a good mood in the absence of things to be in a good mood about. You know what I mean? To be I don't know if it's grateful or just be hey, I'm still happy even if there's things around me that I shouldn't be happy about. I found Ryan and I have taken the past couple of years and really in different ways dialed in our health. I haven't, I go to the gym, I'm gym 4 days a week. I don't miss like you said, that's non-negotiable, X amount of steps a day, diet. And I found that that's regulated my brain in a way. It's regulated, but I don't think I've mastered not getting upset when things go wrong. So, I mean, maybe nobody has.
Yeah,
but
it depends, right? If you're taking things personal and if you're making it about you, then clearly it's going to affect you. So we're all triggered, right? We all have this unconscious program happening. Our unconscious brain is scanning the horizon, looking for what's wrong. And then something happens. And if it triggers me, then that means it's a me problem. That means that there's something that I need to address. There's something that I need to look at. Why am I being triggered about something external? Because the only thing I can control is internal. And so that is a new strategy, right? You need to master that skill. So when shit happens and I'm triggered, I stop, I pause and say, what's up with Ryan? Why am I not able to manage this? Why am I taking this personal? Why am I making this about me? And I shift my perspective and I say, what's the gift in this? Like, what's the opportunity in this? Because I can't control what happens out here, but I can control what happens in here. So I agree with what Hormozy is saying, but it has everything to do with the meaning you give every situation. You can choose, is this bad or is this good? It's a choice. And people don't even realize that they have that choice. And that is another skill that you have to master. I am 100% responsible for my perception of the reality. So the shit happens. Okay, what am I going to say about this thing? What's the meaning I'm going to give this? I can give it a positive meaning. I can give it a negative meaning. And based on what I'm focusing on is going to determine how I feel. And so, for example, lost my mom, lost my dad. That was devastating. I didn't know how to handle it at the time. But I got to a place where I was able to change the meaning of what was going on. And I got to a place where I got to recognize that that happened for me to become the human being I am today. I changed the meaning. I changed my perspective on it. And then I started to feel different about it. The only time death really is in conflict with people is when they think it shouldn't happen when it did. And who am I to play God? None of us are going to get out of here alive. None of us are getting out of here alive. So who am I to say when this person should or shouldn't go? So I live my life today as if tomorrow is my last day. I do my best. You talked about it. You said you didn't want to get too deep. I think it's so important because if you start living your life with that level of meaning, with that level of intention, you're going to take your shit so much more serious and you're going to make much different decisions and you're going to get so much further in your life because before any action is your intention. So what is your intention? And your intention is who you're being. And am I being grateful? Am I being abundant? Am I being a guy that wants to solve problems? Am I being a guy that's shifting and having a positive perspective? And when you're stepping up and being that guy, having that intention, shit works.
You're right. Dude, there's so much of this conversation that has checked every box that we've gone through. It's been a roller coaster, dude. And I just mean like from, managing our W-2 jobs to building a real estate portfolio to becoming entrepreneurs. Corey left to pursue our business, his W-2 last September. I'm still managing mine. And like we're teetering this line of like, hey, saving some extra cash to dump into the business. And we're going through this roller coaster of emotions. And I've seen Corey this last year just purely based on, he's living off the income of the business. Like it has been a whirlwind. I still have the stability, but way less freedoms than he has. So it's been this interesting battle watching each other go through the journey and seeing, the way you talked about the battle between your ears, right? I think that's everything. But there's some days where you can't help but feel that like uncomfort feeling. You're like, hey, we have X amount of dollars. We have to deploy these so strategically and in the right direction, or we're going to be 5 steps back again. And so it's this constant back and forth. So I really just wanted to jump in here because I haven't said a ton and like talk about how much it resonated with me. And then I also want to talk about, and I'll get back to my other point here, but you mentioned your parents, man. And I want to ask, hopefully it's not too vulnerable for you, but at this point, like for me, I think about my parents, right? And like if at the end of the day, if all my friends decide to hate me, all my coworkers decide to hate me, whatever, like something happens, I still have my parents to go talk to. And there's the people that unconditionally love you, right? In most situations. I want to know, like when they pass, did you have this feeling of, I know you've channeled it now to saying like, hey, like this is just me, right? Like I have to, like me against the world kind of thing, or me dictating my own future. Like I have nothing else to fall back on. So there's a lot of questions in there. I don't know if I'm wording it the right way, but like that feeling of like, hey, this is Ryan versus the world now. Like I don't have the other two people to talk to and ask these questions about. I don't know if that's fully making sense, but can you talk to like the mentality of that and how that shaped you towards kind of moving forward, like lone wolf?
Sure.
But I know you've built a community too, so it's a hard question.
No, I love it. I think it's a very important question. And I think this is where most entrepreneurs fall short because they're so focused on the trophies and the money and the success, and they miss out on what's important in life. And what I have found is the more that you can integrate what's important to life, the more successful you become to chasing those trophies and getting those benchmarks. And so when I lost my parents, it triggered the biggest voids that I've ever experienced in my life. And so during those formative years of your life, your caretakers, your parents, are responsible to teach you, to give you, meet your needs. And there's this thing called healthy attunement. Attunement means if like Johnny fell down and hurt his knee, that you would be present to Johnny hurting his knee and going over there and making sure Johnny was safe and making sure everything was okay. And if you didn't do that as a parent, then the void is being built in Johnny. Johnny's not good enough. Johnny's not loved. Johnny wasn't important. Johnny doesn't, his voice doesn't matter. All that shit happens. And then you grow up and then you start to see life through that lens, and you're making decisions from lack, and you're making decisions from those voids, and you're making decisions of not good enough, and you're trying to prove yourself. And then all of a sudden you start to condition yourself, and you start to navigate through life, and you find a little meaning, you find a little purpose, you get busy, and you forget about all that shit. And then you just keep moving through life. And then you all of a sudden have a huge blow up. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And you scream at your wife, you scream at your kids, and you have this massive blow up. You don't know what's going on because those voids weren't addressed. So for me, that was the case. I started doing the work on this, but the real work started when my parents died, because I was in so much pain. I had so much regret. I had so much shame because of how bitter I was, because of how I showed up, because of who I was being, even though I had justification on why I was being the way I was being. My dad beat me. My mom was crazy as hell. It made sense why I was showing up that way. But when they leave, that doesn't matter. You forget all about that stuff. And you start to ask yourself, like, what's really important? And you're like, damn, I wish I would have had that phone call. I wish I would have went over there a little bit more. I wish I would have told my parents how much I love them. I wish I would have told them how proud I am of them. And I'll tell you guys something interesting. Every time I go speak on stage, I bring the presence of my parents in front of me, and I have a moment and I just say, thank you. Thank you so much for being so hard on me, for conditioning me for this world, preparing me for this opportunity. And that is a practice. It took time. And so losing them was the leverage that I needed to do the real work. And that was when I really started digging in.
Yeah. Ryan, I as we wind down the show, this is a question I've only got to ask a few people. I don't know if you've ever heard this teeters in my brain a little bit. I heard it from Aaron McKee, who was a former 76ers player. He played he was a Temple Owls coach, but he didn't originally say it. It's just like a viral thing online. You may have seen it. And it's, I'm going to try not to butcher it, but like, tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men create tough times. So yeah, that saying there, I'm curious how you balance that, because you're a product of tough times create strong men. And now you have a company that is, $100 million. You could in theory be creating easy times. I don't know if you have kids, but I think about this because it's kind of like that, like, oh, my grandfather walked 10 miles to work. I drive a Camry, or my dad drove a Camry. I'm in a Mercedes. My son will be in a Lamborghini, and then his son will be walking again. That type of same thing. How do you balance that with knowing that you have created a life that for your offspring, it could be easier? How do you... hopefully that question makes sense.
It's a great question, and I'll unpack it a little bit. It's a conditioned response. We all have conditioned responses as humans. The model of our world, the environment we grew up in, the people we surround ourselves with, our practices determine our conditioned response. What I have found talking to athletes, actors, famous people, super wealthy people, the only time that they have regrets is when they didn't practice hard enough. When it came time for game time, the only reason why they failed was because they didn't practice hard enough. And so, yes, there are environments that condition you, and those are beneficial to certain people that experience that. But you can also put yourself in a practice where you're going through that level of conditioning every single day. And that's when I said, fall in love with the process. And that's why I literally compete and train every day as if I'm competing for the Olympics. Because, people say, you people say like, oh, you're lucky. No, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So if I am constantly prepared, if I am ready for the moment and the moment comes, I'm not lucky. I was prepared for it. And it's a practice. And it's an unfortunate because the society we live in today, victimhood is the new power. So one of my mentors, David Traub, he mastered psychology and Adlerian psychology and Adler and Rudolf Dreikurs, and they did a study. The most damaging thing you can do to children, even greater than abuse, sexual trauma, physical trauma, the thing that is more harmful than those three things are doing something for somebody that they can do for themselves.
That's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that, where it's like you're almost like instead of giving them, instead of giving them something, you're showing them how to do it themselves, like kind of the teaching.
Well, think about that. If I just keep feeding you fish, you're never going to know how to fish. But if I say, hey, go figure out how to fish, and you have to go figure out every single time, you're going to condition yourself for the quote unquote tough moments or tough times. And see, most people aren't responsible, or they're not in choice, and their environment conditions them. And so I am a firm believer that you can step in empowerment and start to condition yourself to create the life that you want to create. That's what we teach. That's what we teach. Responsibility is empowerment. And so when you're empowered by your choices, you don't let anything else happen, because if you're not feeling empowered, then you're being a victim. And if you're not in control of your outcome, then you're being a victim. And so that's what we teach. We teach empowerment. And once you feel empowered, you could do anything. You feel like you can do everything. And that's what starts to happen. And then you start to condition that response. And then you're moving through life empowered, doing all the things that you want to do.
So I have one on that. It's very interesting because I think about this I'm relating this to entrepreneurship and business ownership, right? At some point, you basically just said, teach a man to fish. At some point in your business, you feel like, hey, listen, this task, I need to offload this and pay someone to do this versus myself learning this. For example, just one small sliver when you're scaling a business, learning to run ads, right? A lot of technical stuff on the back end. There's time in the day. You could figure this out if you needed to, right? If there's no existence of an ads consultant. But for Corey and I, we were going through this ourselves, and we're like, hey, we have our own lanes. We're looking to bring someone in on this. And it at some points, it feels like, hey, we are doing ourselves a disservice by paying someone to do this because we have no idea what they're really doing. Like, are they doing it the right way? We have no way to check them if we don't know how to learn it ourselves. But on the other hand, it's just going to be half-assed if we do it ourselves. So I'm curious on your thoughts in business, how you relate that same mindset to, teaching basically don't like do anything for someone that they can do themselves when you should be teaching them, same as kids. Any thoughts on that in business?
Yeah. And so remember, I landed in August 2018, the leaders of the chokehold. I recognized that. I realized that. And then I learned that I need to know enough about that department and the functions of that department to have an intelligent conversation. But I also want somebody that knows more than me about that conversation. And if I'm not sitting in front of somebody that knows more than me about marketing, or knows more than me about sales, or knows more than me about systems, or knows more than me about leadership, then you need to get a new person. And that's where I started to obsess. I started to obsess and finding the right person. That's a skill in itself. Talent acquisition is a skill itself. Then once you find the right person, you want to give them enough rope to fail forward, because here's what's going to happen. I do the thing, I fail, I learn the experience, they don't. If they do the thing, they fail, they learn the experience, they get better. And then you coach them, you inspire them. And so a lot of me getting here was allowing my team enough room to make enough mistakes so that we can grow, so we can scale. And rather than kicking them while they were down, rather than being upset at them, I just empowered them. I told them that I support them. I told them that they got this. I told them that it's going to be okay. We're in this together. We're a team. We build on results. We build on a culture that is all about thriving as a team, as a unit. and then they would feel more inspired, and then they would get up, they would be empowered, and they would forge forward. They would fall down again. I would get them up and say, hey, it's going to be okay. You got this. You can do this. And here's the interesting thing. Most people know what they need to do anyways. They just lack the drive or the confidence to execute. Execution trumps knowledge any day of the week. And so I create an environment where my team can fail forward and execute for the next task. And my job as a leader is to master the art of influence, to change their psychology, to get them motivated to keep forging forward.
Ryan, this is interesting. A lot of entrepreneurs, including ourselves, I think most people struggle with like letting go of the task and letting go of the thing that they feel like they can do better than somebody else. And
well, just think about that. Just think about what you're saying, like letting go. So that means you're controlling the narrative. So if the narrative isn't what you want it to be, it's the person that's not letting go. And so the idea, and you hear it all the time, surrendering is the key to success. Surrendering is the key to sobriety. Surrendering is the key to scale, but you have to walk them down the aisle. You don't throw them down the aisle and let them figure it out on their way. No, you let them walk 5 steps in front of you, and then you're there. Healthy attunement, the things that most kids didn't get growing up. You can reparent people today. So I send my employee on a mission, and I'm right there behind him to catch him. And I'm right there to support him. I'm right there to encourage him. I'm right there to ask him the right question. I'm right there to anticipate. And then if they fall down, I run over to them. I pick them up and say, what's going on? How's it going? What's going on? How'd you fail? What could you do better? And then they know what to do. They know where they made the mistake. See, most people are afraid to take action or execute because they don't want to fail. And that's the problem. You want people not to be afraid to fail. You want people to fail faster and fix it and change and pivot so that you can become better, because that's the only way you get better is failure.
I just think about how much of my life and business has come from failure. And I think we say this a lot, and it kind of, what I think maybe people get stuck with is that it's not failing to the point where like you lose everything that you have, right? I think it's these micro failures, if you will, like, oh shit, that didn't work. Like I have to pivot. Oh, that didn't work. I have to pivot. And like taking those and stacking them up and turning them into wins or lessons. But you really don't learn anything from winning. And that to me it's been major, but I think people are afraid because they think that this failure is going to like ruin them. And the only way that would ruin them is if you allow it to, or if you decide that it does ruin you. So,
well, think about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Think about this. Most entrepreneurs, most business owners have a belief that they lack resources when it's really a lack of resourcefulness. Think about this. If I dropped you in the middle of a forest and said you have 30 days to survive, I'm going to give you a starter kit, and you only have enough to get by for 30 days. If you lose anything, if you eat too much, you aren't going to have enough to make it 30 days. So now your mindset, your psychology is like, oh shit, I need to be resourceful. I need to maximize what I have. And so then you start to make different decisions because you're like, okay, is this doing too much? Am I spending too much? Am I doing too much? And then you create an environment where there's a level of urgency, right? Because if your life is on the line and you have 30 days to make it out of the forest and you only have 30 days supply, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that you maximize every single thing that you have, and then you'll have a thriving business. And that is exactly the environment I created with my company. I give them just enough to succeed, just enough. And if they fail, I'm right there. Hey, it's okay. I got you. And then they start to condition themselves to be resourceful and figuring out a way, because that's how we grew here. Dude, I grew this business on shoestring and bubblegum. Literally, a company our size typically has 25 to $30 million in debt. I have about $6 million in debt with my current cash flow company. That's insane. It's unheard of. Why? Because we are resourceful.
Dude, I love this. The last thing I want to end with, we have a lot of people that are W-2 employees that want to, quote unquote, escape the race, maybe start a business, invest in real estate, invest in other businesses. Can you talk about just the transition that you had? You mentioned you were in sales at one point, and then the idea to start the business, and then how you pursued it. If you just burned the boats, went cold turkey, if you waited till you had X amount saved up. I'm just curious on the mindset shift of how you did it, when you did it, and when the right time was.
Yeah. And so the earlier years, I mean, it's so crazy. I remember when I moved into the halfway house, when I got out of Juvie at 17, I was just obsessed with working. I just wanted to work. I wanted to like prove my dad right, that I could like be somebody. And so every waking moment I had, I was figuring out how to make a dollar. I was figuring out how to stack money. And so again, it's psychology, right? Like you need to build a lifestyle that's like just enough to get by. Like absolutely commit to 5 years. Okay, I'm a W-2. I want to become an entrepreneur. Okay, great. You need to prepare yourself for the next 5 years, but do short-term goals, 90-day, 120, 180-day, 12-month goals, because the urgency is there and you have to follow the plan. You cannot deviate off the plan, and you have to obsess about generating more income and learning a skill to become more valuable. And so sales, in my opinion, is the most important skill anybody can learn, because there's remote jobs these days. There's AI stuff that you can do. There's so many things that you could do on the side on top of your W-2 to make more money. I mean, there's remote sales. I mean, you could literally work a 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 12, you can literally be on your computer answering phone calls, doing sales. Well, if you did that for 24 months and saved your money, learn that skill, you're going to see so many other opportunities because you have a skill, you have a talent. I look for people that can sell. I look for people that can raise money. I look for people that know how to go out there and grow and expand and do business development. It's a skill that people need to learn. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful. And then I guess my question was, just to kind of put a bow on it, is what you're working the sales job, right? When did you pivot to say, hey, I'm going on the business? Did you raise capital to start the business? Did you fund it with your own dollars? Were you doing it while you had the sales job? And just, I'm curious that transition into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And so when I started, I was a commodities broker. My first goal was to get licensed. I became licensed. And then I recognized the skill that I needed to learn, which was raising money. And so we had like there's openers and closers, and there's like the money raisers. And that was like the 3 tiers. And so my target was to become a money raiser, because once you're a money raiser, you have openers and closers feeding you deals, and your job is just to raise the capital. So I started to obsess. I said, okay, how do I figure out how to raise money? And so then once I learned that skill, I was like, holy shit, I could do anything I want, because raising money is the key to any success. So for me, it just was I was fortunate and I was lucky to learn that. And so it's funny. I remember sitting down with my boss, and in the NFA, National Futures Association, you're allowed to give 10% to like a key person. And so that's all I asked him for. I said, hey, man, I'm raising a ton of money here. I'm probably doing like 50% of the firm's revenue. I was like, I just want a little shot in the arm. Just, the 10%, I'd be so grateful. And he was like, no. And that was the best thing that he could have done, because I was like, all right, well, then I guess I'm just going to do my own thing. And so my back was against the wall. I had to figure it out. I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but you have to burn the bridge. At some point, you have to have that leap of faith. And so I did. And we ended up becoming a thriving success. And then I got sued by the FTC. Go figure, right? But at the end of the day, it was the best skill that I could have learned. It was the best experience. And so, I don't think there's like a single answer, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to bet on yourself at some point. You have to go all in at some point. But be resourceful, raise money, find a partnership. I mean, you could start off in a partnership and then say, hey, after a year or 2 years, let's exit. Let's support each other to get going. And then like once we build some establishment and we build some momentum and we have some revenue, we can split or we can renegotiate or whatever. There's so many things that you can do, so many different avenues that you can prepare yourself to become a business owner.
I love it, man. You nailed it. So, for people that enjoyed the episode, and they want to get to know you a little bit more, maybe network, find where your business is at, can you let me know the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is the easiest. Everybody can find me there. Any events that we're up to, any speaking engagements or anything that I have going on, I promote it there. It's Ryan.Zofay, Zofay. It's my Instagram handle. Yeah, and that'd be the easiest way to find me.
It's amazing, man. I just want to thank you. This has been an amazing episode. I kind of touched on this earlier, but not so often do people talk about the inner battle and the mental battle and just overcoming hurdles. And I think that it calluses you and trains you to become an entrepreneur. I think there's so many things in life that people go through that they shy away from, but when you use it as fuel, it can really change your life and change other people's lives. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and just sharing everything with us. I'm super inspired and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ryan. And thank you so much, Corey. And for you guys, my feedback to you would be double down. Go bigger, swing harder. I know it's a simple concept, but right now there's things in your life that you could be pushing a little harder at that you're not, because you feel maybe like you need to be a little reserved, or you're waiting for that perfect moment. Imperfect action is better than no action at all. And there's a thing that I learned along the way, which is psychology, right? Trust the tongue in somebody's shoe versus the tongue in their mouth. If they're moving, if they're pursuing their future self, they're winning. If they're sitting still talking about what they think that they should be doing, or what they ought to be doing, or what they regret doing, then they're not moving. And so imperfect action is better than no action at all.
Corey, you have anything else?
No, that was awesome, man. I can attest to what you're saying. I think it makes so much sense. And I just feel blessed that we get to chat with entrepreneurs, investors, people that have made it to levels beyond where we're at. It makes me, one, just humble for the journey and glad that I'm going after this. Ryan and I being 50-50 partners, it's awesome to have that. But then to just hear stories and take lessons and bits and pieces from the other people that we've seen that have had wild success. So I just want to thank you for coming on. This has been awesome to get to know you, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate both you guys. Thank you so much for what you do. It inspires me. I think it's amazing. More people need to do this. The fact that you guys show up every day and you want to share a message of hope and impact, I think it's so powerful. So keep doing it, guys. Just fall in love with this process. Fall in love with this, and don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about the next day. Just every single day show up and give it your best. And then all of a sudden you're going to wake up and be like, holy shit, I created this.
Means a lot, man. That really does. We've been doing this for 5.5 years, and I've found that the only way that we've had any success in any business venture ever is because we've been able to organically network with people like yourself who are true givers and take the time to come on here and share your story. And these conversations fuel us even more. So we'll take that to heart, man. We'll keep it going.
Appreciate you guys. God bless, guys. Keep crushing it.